Hey everybody, Dan here. So I'm in the car, and I brought Mac along just for the hell of it. And first off, I'd like to thank you all for being here at our wedding. I know for most of you it involved planes and automobiles and traveling with masks and getting kids in the car and traveling with them for an extended period of time. I just want to say thank you so much. It's not lost on Lynn and I, and we're so glad that we could all be here together. If I timed it right, you guys should be wrapping up a dessert, and I really should make this video quick because we probably only have about 20 minutes left before they throw us out of the room. So when we first were talking about the wedding, Lynn and I said, oh, maybe I'll make a video and, you know, we'll talk about our relationship and maybe I'll crack some jokes and it'll be funny. And Lynn thought it was a great idea. And then I realized I stuck my foot in it because now I actually have to make this video and I'm like stressing about it and what am I going to say? So, you know, here again, I'm in the car and we're gonna push through it. So, in case most of you are aware of this fact, but Lynn and I have known each other since third grade. In, I guess, like 1981, 1982, Lynn moved to Valley Stream. She moved right across the street from Wheeler Avenue, where I went to school. And she was like the new exotic student in third grade. And Lynn was my first introduction to Judaism, which in third grade just meant that this is a kid who doesn't celebrate Christmas. And I was like horrified, like what did this girl do that she doesn't celebrate Christmas? But she actually turned out to be a very nice and sweet girl. So I said, oh, I guess it's, you know, not the worst thing in the world. So that was my first exposure to Judaism. And our class was, we had Mrs. Rich together. Mrs. Rich was not a nice person. And I know that there's kids watching right now. And kids, it's okay because they, you know, a long time ago when we had teachers, they let mean people be teachers. But they passed the law a few years ago that says that you can't be mean and be a teacher. So your teachers are all going to be fine. But back in the day, we had some mean teachers. So yeah, we had Mrs. Rich together. I'll put a school picture on the screen. And this is a totally undoctored picture of Mrs. Rich. So that was our teacher. And, you know, there's Lynn. Lynn was always beautiful and cute. You could tell from my body language in this picture that I wasn't having any of this picture nonsense. But there we are in third grade together. And, yeah, Mrs. Rich, a couple of things Mrs. Rich did. One, she yelled at me because I chose to throw out my lunch one day. I don't remember the circumstances, but she was like, she came, the cafeteria was in a basement, and she was on the stairs, and she was coming down or going up, and she's like, Dan, where's your lunch? And I said, I don't know why, I was like, I traded it to somebody. I don't know why I said traded it. It was the first thing I thought of. And she was like, well, you go find that lunch. So then I was walking around the cafeteria while she's at the top of the stairs looking down at me like some evil gargoyle. As I'm walking around the cafeteria, putting on a show, looking for the kid that the non-existent kid I didn't trade my lunch to. And then finally I look up at her, I do this, because she's like 50 feet away. I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, and she walked up the stairs. So I was like, this isn't the end of this, you know? So later on that day, and going back, Mom, I'm sorry I threw out the lunch. I don't remember what you gave me, but I didn't want it that day. I think I bought a soft pretzel from the woman, and you know, I didn't starve that day. So then later on that day, I think I had to go to her desk to pick up a paper or whatever, and her demeanor was, she was like, hey Dan, my pal Dan, you didn't really trade your lunch today, right? I mean, you could tell me, I'm your teacher. And I'm like, no, I threw it out, I didn't want it. And she snapped and was like, why did you lie to me? And she's like I started like crying, my eyes are tearing up, and the rest of the class is like looking at the front of the screen. And again, we're in third grade. And I chose to throw out my lunch. Last I looked, this was America, and we could throw out our lunches. So that was the one thing Mrs. Rich did. The other thing she did, my mom is in the room right now, so she could verify this story. We went to a class field trip. It was a whole day affair, and we went to Garvey's Point, which was a nature preserve about like a half an hour from the school. And when we got there, my mom volunteered to chaperone us that day. So when we get to Garvey's Point, Mrs. Rich divided up the class, and she put I wasn't in the group my mom was watching. Mrs. Rich was like, Mrs. King, you watch those kids over there, and Dan, you're coming with me and this group over here. And my mom and I kind of looked at each other, and then we looked at Mrs. Rich, and Miss Rich was like, I'm the teacher. I call the shots. You know, what are you going to do? That was the look she gave us. So the whole day, I wasn't with my mom, and my mom was watching a bunch of randos. Occasionally, we would cross paths, and we'd look at one another. And my friends were like, why aren't you with your mom? And I was like, I don't, Mrs. Rich, I don't know. So that was Mrs. Rich, everybody. Terrible teacher. I mean, I'm sure she taught me stuff that was relevant in 1982, like how to tell the clock, what time it is on a round clock, and how to write cursive. Two things I don't use now, but whatever, it was on the syllabus in 1982. And then Lynn and I we were in 5th grade together with Mrs. Hirschman. Mrs. Hirschman was a cool teacher. She was very nice. She was very beautiful. I have a class picture. There we are. That's Lynn in the back. That's me. And below me is my best friend at the time, Phil Leon. And, you know, another great class picture of me. You know, Lynn looks adorable as usual. And the cool thing about Mrs. Hirschman's class is she made everybody sit alphabetically. So it was Lynn Kahn, and then it was Dan King, and then behind me was Phil Leon. So it was perfect because I got to play with Lynn's beautiful curly hair. And then Phil Leon would like crack jokes behind me. One of the things Phil said, he thought he was the funniest kid in 5th grade for about a month, is he used to call Lynn Abraham Lynn Kahn. He thought it was the funniest joke ever. And for a week, it was Abraham Lincoln. Lynn probably like smiled and laughed, but then like pulled Phil aside and threatened to kill him if he didn't knock it off. And that was probably the end of it. That's probably not what happened, but in my mind, that's what happened. So yeah, and then we went through high school together. I really didn't interact too much with Lynn in high school. What I do remember is, like, you know, in high school was a nightmare. There was like bullies, and the girls were mean, and there were cliques and everything. And but Lynn was always like safe. Like if Lynn and I walked through the hallways and we made eye contact, she always smiled and said hi. You know, like she's the same person back then as she is now. She's super nice and beautiful and wonderful to everyone she meets. So yeah, like, but I just didn't want anything to do with high school. I ran out of there as soon as I could. So, getting into more recent times. So our first date, like Lynn and I, we were talking on Facebook, and then as the fates would have it, we were kind of out of relationships at about the same time. And, you know, so I started flirting hard. I started flirting hard with Lynn on Facebook. And I think I said, I'm going to make you my Valentine, whether you like it or not. And she laughed at that. And, you know, so we were talking online, and we decided we had a first date. We live 5 hours apart, so I decided I picked a middle spot in the Poconos, and I sent her a GPS, one of those old things you put on your car windshield, and I pre-programmed it. And I said, you're just going to follow this. You don't even know where you're going. So it was a fun little adventure. And I even sent a emergency pack in case the GPS doesn't work or whatever. She could open up this thing and use her phone or her GPS to get there, which she ended up using because the GPS I sent her, she had to drive through a field or something. I don't know what happened, but Lynn figured it out, and we met at the hotel, and we had our first date, and that was March 15th, 2013 in the Poconos somewhere. And during that time, I made her watch the movie Moonrise Kingdom, which is a great movie. It's about a couple kids in the 60s. They're on this island, this small island together, and they run away. And as you know, the rest of the island, the grown-ups are looking for them. They have a little adventure, and the kid is like a Cub Scout, and he's using his Cub Scout skills to, like, you know, to get around this island. And eventually they find this like little alcove, and they camp out there, and they have like a couple days together where they're like away from all the grown-ups and everything in their lives. And I showed up to Lynn, and I kind of made it as like a comparison. I said, you know, this is what we're doing right now. We're running away from our lives, and we're having a little adventure in the woods somewhere. And Lynn thought that was great, and she really liked the movie. And so that was always a part of our relationship, was this movie. So fast forward to it came time, you know, after 7 years, it came time to propose to Lynn. So I said, you know what? I found out where they filmed the scene that I was talking about, where these kids were hiding out, and it was in Rhode Island somewhere. I go, oh, you know what would be great if I take Lynn to where the scene of this movie was being filmed, and I propose to her there. That'll be pretty cool. And so I made up an excuse for Lynn. I'm like, oh, we should go to Rhode Island. I think I said that H.P. Lovecraft was born there. I don't know. What excuse do you give for getting somebody to meet you at Rhode Island? That's what I came up with. She was game. She probably knew what was going on. So the night we rendezvous in this town in Rhode Island, I show her Moonrise Kingdom again to remind her of the movie, you know. So next day, it's, you know, I'm going to propose to Lynn. I drive to this state park where she is. I'll put the name on the screen. I forget where it was. And she gets out of the car and she's like, oh, it's so beautiful here. It reminds me of Moonrise Kingdom. And some random guy 100 feet away with his wife or girlfriend or whatever, he whips around and goes, well, you know, actually, Moonrise Kingdom was filmed right around here. Right around the corner is where they filmed this scene. And I'm like, dude, like... You know, I drove hundreds of miles and I got here, and this guy's gonna ruin everything. But whatever, he said it. I wanted to murder him, but you know, whatever. Like, again, Lynn, I think, knew what was happening, and she like politely kept her mouth shut. So I went to where the kids were and I proposed to Lynn. I'm sure you're all aware. You've seen the pictures. I'll put them on the screen from the movie and where I proposed to her with Mac the dog, who's actually in the back there. I don't know if I pointed it out. I took him along with me there. So that was the engagement, and we didn't announce the engagement for a full day because, again, like the kids in the story, we just wanted to we wanted to hide from the grown-ups and have this little day together. I said, oh, we won't tell anybody for a day, you know, and so the next day we announced it, and everyone knew that we were engaged. So at this point, we're still living 5 hours apart. We're doing this long distance thing, and I finally caved. For a while, I wanted Lynn to move down with me, but it made more logical sense for me to move up there. So, you know, I told her, I said, I'll wrap things up and I'll move up there. So around, I guess, like late January or early February of 2020 is when I quit my job and I moved. I got rid of the apartment. I moved up to live with Lynn. And then I was working remotely for about a month just to like wrap up they were transitioning my position out at work. So I was helping them out. And right after that happened was like these mumblings of this, you know, COVID, but what's this COVID all about? And it was getting more and more serious that this is like a real thing that's going to start like changing our lives in the near future. So Lynn and I were a little concerned. And you know, she was talking about she's in the hospital and she may have to encounter people who have this mysterious new illness that's going around. And it's dangerous, and I'm not going to have health insurance. So we should get married sooner than later. So we went to the clerk or wherever where you go to get married. And the way it works in New York is you can't get married right away. It prevents like young lovers from getting married on the spot. You have to fill out paperwork, and then there's a 24-hour waiting period before you can actually get hitched. So we did all that, and we filled it out, and the person was like, okay, then you got to make an appointment with the judge, and you know, then you guys will be hitched. Everything's fine. So like, great. So a couple days later, I get a phone call, and it's like, oh, you know, this COVID. The judge is like, I'm not going to go to work, and like we're stopping going to work. This COVID thing is blowing up, and I'm canceling the appointment. So I tell Lynn, oh, they're canceling the appointment, and Lynn thinks I'm talking about the dishwasher that I just ordered is being canceled. I'm like, no. It's the judge or the town clerk, and they're canceling our thing. And, you know, we all know Lynn. Lynn is like, oh, no, that's not happening. So Lynn grabbed the phone, and she started talking to this judge. And the judge is like, you know, they're shutting down my office. I don't know. We're going to have to wait this whole thing blows over. So Lynn's talking to her. So finally the judge is like, okay, this is what I can do. I have a meeting at 12 o'clock. And as I'm walking from my office to where the meeting is, I think she was actually making a statement on how COVID is shutting down the universe. She said, as I'm walking to one office to another, I could meet you in the parking lot. I'll grab some random guy I work with, and you could bring a witness, and I'll marry you in the parking lot, a 5-minute thing. If you want to do that, I could do that. So Lynn and I are like, sure, whatever. So we ran down there. We grabbed Sean as a witness, and Lynn was in her lavender scrubs because she's about to go to work. I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt probably, I don't remember. And yeah, our romantic ceremony was in a parking lot where we were dressed in regular clothing, and we all forgot to take a picture of the moment, so there's no picture or video evidence that this happened, but it happened. So I know some of you probably had an idea, but Lynn and I have been married, so sorry for the ruse. And particularly my mom, I'm so sorry, Mom, that I had to lie to you. My mother asked me, because Lynn and I have been wearing the rings, and my mother flat out asked me, she's like, "Are you guys married?" And I made up some excuse because, again, Lynn and I decided to keep it under wraps until we had a ceremony and did this thing properly, because we had this terrible ceremony. I actually think it's kind of cool because now we have the story about how we got married at the spur of the moment because of COVID in the parking lot. But yeah, so Mom and everybody else, I'm so sorry that we had to lie about the rings and all that. But this is the circumstances that we had. So our official date, what we talked about, our official anniversary date is going to be March 16th, 2020. That's actually when we got married in the parking lot. So again, everybody, sorry about the ruse. And, we appreciate you guys coming out here so much. And to Lynn, I love you very much. Thank you for being my wife. I'm looking forward to running away and having more adventures with you for the rest of our lives. So again, thanks everybody. And I guess I'll talk to you because I'm in the room with you right now. And thanks again. Bye-bye.